tiger, who's the tiger, who's the tiger? She owns the tea, best the tiger, best them tiger, there, oh where you can be. Down the high low, say your brow, please play the time right for me. Ooh, at the pipe, ooh, at the pipe.
Ach du meine Fresse. Sehe aus wie ein Urmensch. Es ist wieder Zeit für die Schleue. Das gefällt mir noch nicht. Naja, das ist schon mal das richtige Licht. Aber na, eigentlich geht es. Ich muss mich rasieren. Wie lange hat man sich jetzt mit Dümme beschäftigt? Irgendwann ist genug, dass man nicht noch selber verblödet. Weil ich muss mal wirklich sagen, wenn man nach Content sucht zum Reacten und man will nicht diese ganze Gossip-Scheiße nehmen, dann ist es ultra schwer, weil alles AI-generated ist. Und das ist doch genau das, was ich gesagt habe. AI ist so neu und es geht einem jetzt schon so auf den Zeiger, immer dieselben Stimmen, diese Art zu reden, diese Hollowness, Hohlheit. Es ist, also ich distanziere mich ganz klar davon. In the summer of 68, I was 25, a graduate student at Penn State University, specializing in American literature. I'd finished my MA thesis on Ernest Hemingway and was starting my doctoral dissertation on John Barth. But in my heart, what I wanted to be was a novelist. I knew that few novelists made a living at it, so I decided to become a literature professor, an occupation in which I'd be surrounded by books and allowed time to write. Köstlich. 10 von 10 Kaffee. A Penn State faculty member, Philip Glass, whose science fiction pseudonym is William Tenn, had given me generous instruction in the techniques of fiction writing. Still, as Glass had pointed out, I can teach you how to write, but not what to write about. What would I write about? By chance, I watched a television program that changed my life. The program was the... Moment. Ach so, nee, ich habe gedacht, das ist schon aus der Sicht des Protagonisten. Okay. He had a name, and he was just some nothing kid for all anybody knew, standing by the pump of a gas station at the outskirts of Madison, Kentucky. He had a long, heavy beard, and his hair was hanging down over his ears to his neck, and he had his hand out trying to thump a ride from a car that was stopped at the pump. To see him there leaning on one hip, a Coke bottle in his hand, and a rolled up sleeping bag near his boots on the tar pavement, you could never have guessed that on Tuesday, a day later, most of the police in Basalt County would be hunting him down. Certainly, you could not have guessed that by Thursday he would be running from Kentucky National Guard and the police of 6 counties and a good many private citizens who liked to shoot. But then from just seeing him there, ragged and dusty by the pump of the gas station, you could never have figured the kind of kid he was, or what was about to make it all begin. He knew there was going on to be trouble. Big trouble. If somebody didn't watch out. The car he was trying to thump a ride with nearly ran him over when it left the pump. A station attendant crammed a charge slip and a book of trade stamps into his pocket and grinned at the tire marks on the hot tar close to his feet. Then the police car pulled out of traffic toward him, and he recognized the start of the pattern again and stiffened. No, by God, not this time. This time I won't be pushed. The cruiser was marked Chief of Police Madison. It stopped next to him, its radio antenna swaying, and the policeman inside leaned across the front seat, opening the passenger door. He started at the mud-crusted boots, the rumpled jeans ripped at the cuffs and patched on one thigh, the blue sweatshirt speckled with what looked like dry blood, the buckskin jacket. He lingered over the beard and the long hair. No, that's not what was bothering him. It was something else, and he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Well then, hop in, he said. But the kid did not move. I said hop in, the man repeated. Must be awful hot out there in that jacket. But the kid just sipped his Coke, glanced up and down the street at the cars passing, looked down at the policeman in the cruiser, and stayed where he was. Something wrong with your heart? Something wrong with your hearing? The policeman said. Get in here before you make me sore. He studied him, just as he himself had been studied. Short and chunky, behind the wheel, wrinkles around his eyes, and shallow pockmarks in his cheeks that gave them a grain-like weathered board. Don't stare at me, the policeman said. But the kid kept on studying him. The gray uniform, top, bottom of his shirt open, tie loose, the front of his shirt soaked dark with sweat. He looked, but could not see what kind his handgun was. The policeman had it holstered to the left, away from the passenger side. I'm telling you, the policeman said, I don't like being stared at. Who does? The kid glanced around once more, then picked up a sleeping bag. As he got into the cruiser, he set the bag between himself and the policeman. Been waiting long? The policeman asked. An hour since I came. You could have waited a little longer than that. People around here don't generally stop for a hitchhiker, especially if he looks like you. It's against the law. Looking like me? Don't be smart. I mean hitchhiking against the law. Too many people stop for a kid on the road and next thing they're robbed or maybe dead. Close your door. The kid took a slow sip of coke before he did what he was told. He looked over at the gas station attendant who was still at the pump, grinning as the policeman pulled the cruiser into traffic and headed downtown. No need to worry, the kid told the policeman. I won't try to rob you. That's very funny. In case you missed the sign at the door, I'm the chief of police. Teasel. Wilfred Teasel. But then I don't guess there's much point in telling you my name. He drove on through a main intersection where the light was turning orange. Farther on both sides of the street were stores squeezed together. A drugstore, a pool hall, a gun, a tackle shop, dozens more. Over the top of them, far back on the horizon, mountains rose up, tall and green, touched here and there with red and yellow, where the leaves had begun to die. The kid watched a cloud shadow slip across the mountains. Where you headed? He heard Teasel ask. Does it matter? No. Come to think of it, I don't guess there's much point in knowing that either. Just the same, where you headed? Maybe Louisville. And maybe not. That's right. Where did you sleep? In the woods? That's right. In my sleeping bag. It's safe enough now, I suppose. The nights are getting colder, and the snakes like to hole up instead of going out to hunt. Still, one of these times you might find yourself with a bad partner who's just as crazy about your body heat. They passed a car wash, an A&P, a hamburger drive-in with a big Dr. Pepper sign in the window. Just look at that eyesore drive-in, Teasel said. They put that thing here on the mainstream, and ever since all we've had is kids parked, beeping their horns, throwing crap on the sidewalk. Our kid sipped his coke. Somebody from town give you a ride in? Teasel asked. I walked. I've been walking since after dawn. Sure, I'm sorry to hear that. Least this ride will help some, won't it? Won't it? The kid did not answer. He knew what was coming. They drove over a bridge and a steam into the town square, an old stone courthouse at the right end, more shops squeezed together down both sides. Yeah, police station's right up there by the courthouse, Teasel said. But he drove right on through the square and down the street until there were only houses, first neat and prosperous, then grey cracked wooden shacks with children playing in the dirt in front. He went up a rise in the road between two cliffs to a level where there were no houses at all, only fields of stunned corn turning brown in the sun. And just after a sign that read, "You are now leaving Madison. Drive safely," he pulled off the pavement onto the gravel shoulder. Take care, he said. And keep out of trouble, the kid answered. Isn't that how it goes? That's good. You've been this route before. No, I don't need to waste time explaining how guys who look like you have this habit of being a disturbance. He lifted the sleeping bag from where he had put it between them, set it on his lap, and leaned across him to open the passenger door. Take good care now. The kid got slowly out of the car. I'll be seeing you, he said, and flipped the door shut. No, Teasel answered, through the open passenger. I guess you won't. He drove the cruiser up the road, made a U-turn, and headed back toward town, sounding his car horn as he passed. The kid watched the cruiser disappear down the road between the two cliffs. He sipped the last of his coke, tossed the bottle in the ditch, and with his sleeping bag slung by its rope around his shoulder, he started back to town. The air was sticky with frying grease. The kid watched the old lady behind the counter peer out of the bottom of her bifocal glasses at his clothes and hand beard. 2 hamburgers and a Coke, he told her. Make that to go, he heard from behind. He looked at the reflection in the mirror behind the counter and saw Teasel braced in the front doorway, holding the screen door open, letting it slam shut with a whack. And make that a rush job, will you? Teasel said. This kid's in powerful hurry. Only a few customers were in the place, sitting at the counter and in some of the booths. The kid watched their reflection in the mirrors as they quit chewing and looked over at him. But then Teasel leaned against the jukebox by the door and it seemed like nothing serious was going to happen. So they went back to work on their food. The old lady behind the counter had her white head cocked to one side, puzzled. Oh yeah, Merle. And while you're fixing that stuff, how about a fast coffee, Teasel said. Merle, wahrscheinlich Merle. Whatever you like, Wilfred, she said, still puzzled, and went to pour the coffee. That left the kid looking at the mirror, Teasel looking at him. Teasel had an American Legion pin opposite the badge of his shirt. I wonder which war, the kid thought. You're just a bit young for the second one. He swung round on his stool and faced him. Korea? He said, pointing at the pin. That's right, Teasel said flatly. And they went on watching each other. The kid shifted his eyes down to Teasel's left side and the handgun he wore. It was a surprise, not the standard police revolver, but a semi-automatic pistol. And from the big handle, the kid decided it was a Browning 9mm. He had used the Browning once himself. Remember himself that he's not a kid at all. The handle was big because it held a clip of 13 bullets instead of the 7 or 8 that most pistols held. You couldn't slam a man flat on his back with one shot from it, but you could sure hurt him bad, and 2 more would finish him. And he still had 10 more shots for anybody else around. The kid had to admit that Teasel carried it awfully well, too. Teasel was 5'6", maybe 7. And for a smallish man, that the big pistol ought to have hung awkward, but it didn't. You have to be pretty large to get a grip on that big handle, though, the kid thought. And then he looked at Teasel's hand, amazed at the size of them. I warned you about that staring, the policeman said. Leaning against the jukebox, he unstuck his sweat shirt from his chest. Left-handed, he took a cigarette from a pack in his shirt pocket, lit it, snapping the wood match he had used in half, and snickered, shaking his head in amusement as he walked over to the counter and smiled strangely down at the kid on the stool. Well, you sure put one over on me, didn't you? I said. I wasn't trying to. Of course not. Of course you weren't. But you sure put one over on me just the same, didn't you? The old lady set Teasel's coffee down and faced the kid. How do you want your burgers? Plain or dragged through the garden? What? Plain or with fixings? With lots of onions. Whatever you like. She went off to fry the hamburgers. Yeah, you really did. Yeah, really did, Teasel said to him and smiled strangely again. You really put one over. He frowned at the dirty cotton bulging from a rib in the stool next to the kid and said reluctantly, I mean, you act like you're smart, and you talk like you're smart. So I naturally assume you got the idea. But then you can't drag him back here and fool me. And that's enough to make a man wonder if maybe you're not smart at all. Is there something wrong with you? Is that what it is? I'm hungry. Well, that just doesn't interest me at all, Teasel said, drawing on his big cigarette. It had no filter, and after he exhaled, he picked off bits of tobacco that were stuck on his lips and tongue. A fellow like you, he ought to have brains to carry lunch with him. You know, for when he has some emergency like you have now. He lifted the cream pitcher like you have now. He lifted the cream pitcher to pour into his coffee. Then he noticed the bottom of the pitcher and his mouth went sour at the yellow curds that were clinging there. Huh? I said, you need a job? No. Then you already got a job. No, I don't have a job either. I don't want a job. It's called being a vagrant. Call it whatever the hell you want. Teasel hand slammed like a shot on the counter. You watch your mouth. Everyone in the place jerked his head toward Teasel. He looked around at them and smiled as if he had said something funny, and leaned close to the counter to sip his coffee. That'll give them something to talk about. He smiled and took another draw on his cigarette, picking more specks of tobacco off his tongue. The joke was over. Listen, I don't get it. That rig of yours. The clothes and hair and all. Didn't you know when you came back down this main street? Out there you'd stand out like some black man? My crew radioed in about you 5 minutes after you got back. What took them so long? The mouth, he said. I warned you. He looked like he was ready to say more, but then the old lady brought the kid a half-full paper bag and said, $1.31. For what? For that little bit? You said you wanted the fixings. Just pay her, Teasel said. She held onto the bag until the kid gave her the money. Okay, let's go, Teasel said. Where? Where I take you? He emptied his cup in 4 quick swallows and put down the quota. Thanks, Merrily. Everybody looked at the two of them as they walked out the door. Almost forgot. Hey, Merrily, one more thing. How about cleaning the button on that cream pitcher? The cruiser was directly outside. Get in, Teasel said, tugging at his sweaty shirt. Damn, for the 1st of October it sure is hot. I don't know how you tolerate wearing that hot jacket. I don't sweat. Teasel looked at him. Sure you don't. He dropped a cigarette down a manhole grate by the curb and they got into the cruiser. The kid watched the traffic and the people going past. In the bright sun after the dark lunch counter, his eyes hurt. One man walking by the cruiser waved to Teasel, and Teasel waved back, then pulled away from the curb into a break in traffic. He was driving fast this time. They went down past the hardware store and a used car lot, and old men smoking cigars and on benches, and women pushing children in strollers. Look at those women, Teasel said. A hot day like this, and they don't have the sense to keep their kids indoors. The kid did not bother looking. He just closed his eyes and leaned back. When he opened them, the cruiser was speeding up the road between the two cliffs up onto the level where the stunted corn drooped in the fields past the "You are now leaving Madison" sign. Teasel stopped the car abruptly on the gravel shoulder and turned to him. Now get it clear. I don't want a kid who looks like you and doesn't have a job in my town. First thing I know, a bunch of your friends will show up, mooching food, maybe stealing, maybe pushing drugs. As it is, I've half a notion to lock you up for the inconvenience if calls me. But the way I see it, a kid like you is entitled to a mistake. It's like your judgment not as developed as an older man's, and I have to make allowances. But you came back again, I'll fix you so you won't know whether you're as assholes bored, bunched, or packed out back rows. Is that plain enough for you to understand? Is that clear? The kid grabbed hold of the lunch sack and the sleeping bag and got out of the car. I asked you a question. I want to know if you heard me tell you not to come back. I heard you, flipping the door shut. Then damn it, do what you hear you told. Teasel stomped on the gas pedal and the cruiser lurched off the road shoulder, gravel flying on the smooth, hard pavement. He made a severe U-turn, tires squealing this time, and sped back towards town. And sped back toward town. And sped back towards town. This time it did not sound his car horn going past. The kid watched the cruiser get smaller and disappear down the hill between the two cliffs, and when he could no longer see it, he glanced around at the fields of corn and the mountains in the distance and the white sun in the star sky. He eased down into the ditch, stretching out in the long dust-covered grass to open his paper sack. A son of a bitch of a hamburger, He had asked for lots of onions and got one crushed string of it. The tomato slice was thin and yellow. The bun was greasy, the meat full of pork gristle. Chewing reluctantly, he pried the top of the plastic cup of Coke and washed his mouth and swallowed. Everything went down in a sweet, cruddy lump. The thing to do, he decided, was to save enough Coke for both hamburgers, so he would not have to taste them. When he was done, he put the cup and the 2 pieces of wax paper from the hamburgers into the bag and lit a match, setting fire to it all. He held on, studying the spread of the flames, calculating how close the fire would get to his hand before he would have to let go. The fire stung his fingers and sinked the hair on the back of his hand before he dropped the bag onto the grass and let it burn to ashes. Then he crushed the ashes to his boot with his boot, and careful they were out, he scattered them. Christ, he thought, 6 months back from the war, and still he had the urge to destroy what was left of what he had eaten so he would not leave a trace of where he had been. He shook his head. Thinking about the war had been a mistake. Instantly he was reminded of his other habits from the war. Trouble getting to sleep, waking with the slightest noise, needing to sleep in the open, the hole where they had kept him prisoner, fresh in his mind. You'd better think of something else, he said out loud, and then realized he was talking to himself. What's it going to be? Which way? He looked where the road stretched into town, where it stretched away from town, and then he was decided. He grabbed the rope on his sleeping bag, slung it around his shoulder, and started hiking into Madison again. At the bottom of the hill into town, trees lined the road, half green, half red, the red leaves always on the branches that hung over the road. From exhaust fumes, he thought, exhaust fumes killed him early. Dead animals lay here, and there along the roadside, likely hit by cars bloated and speckled with flies in the sun. First a cat, trigger-striped. Looked like it had been a nice cat, too. Next a cocker spaniel, then a rabbit, then a squirrel. That was another thing the war had given him. He noticed dead things more. Not in horror, just in curiosity of how they had come to end. He walked past them down the right side of the road, thumb out for a ride. His clothes were filmed yellow with dust. His long hair and beard were matted dirty. And all the people driving by took a look at him and nobody stopped. So why don't you clean up your act, he thought. Shave and get a haircut. Fix up your clothes. You get your rights that way. Because a razor's just one more thing to slow you down, and haircuts waste money you can spend on food. And where would you shave anyhow? You can sleep in the woods and come out looking like some kind of prince. Then why walk around like this, sleeping in the woods? And with that, his mind moved in a circle, and he was back to the war, thinking about something else, he told himself. Why not turn around and go? Why come back to this town? It's nothing special. Because I have a right to decide for myself whether I'll stay in it or not. I won't have somebody decide that for me. But this cop is friendlier than the rest were, more reasonable. Why bug him? Do what he says. Just because somebody smiles when he hands me a bag of shit, that doesn't mean I have to take it. I don't give a damn how friendly he is. It's what he does that matters. But you do look a little rough, as you might cause trouble. He has a point. So do I. In 15 goddamn towns this has happened to me. This is the last. I won't be fucking shoved anymore. Why not explain it to him? Clean yourself up a bit. Or do you want this trouble that's coming? You're hungry for some action. Is that it? So you can show him your stuff. I don't have to explain myself to him or anybody else. After what I've been through, I have a right without explanation. At least tell him about your metal, what it cost you. Too late to stop his mind from completing the circle. Once again, he returned to the war. Teasel was watching for him. As soon as he drove past the kid, he had glanced up at his rearview mirror, and there the kid had been reflected small and clear. But the kid was not moving. He was just standing there at the side of the road where he had last been, watching the cruiser, just standing there, getting smaller, watching the cruiser. Well, what's the hold-up, kid? Teasel thought. Go on, clear out. But the kid had not. He had just kept standing there, getting smaller in the mirror, looking toward the cruiser. And then the road into town had sloped sharply down between the cliffs, and Teasel could not see him reflected anymore. My God, you're planning to come back again, he had suddenly realized, shaking his head and laughing once. You're honestly planning to come back? He turned right onto a side street and drove a quarter way up a row of grey clapboard houses. He swung into a gravel driveway and backed out and parked so the cruiser was aimed toward the main road he had just left. Then he slumped behind the steering wheel, lighting a cigarette. The look on the kid's face. He was honest to God planning to come back. Teasel could not get over it. From where he was parked, he could see everything that passed on the main road. The traffic wasn't much. It never was on Monday afternoons. The kid couldn't walk along the fair sidewalk and be hidden by the passing cars. So Teasel watched. The street he was on met the main road in a T. There were cars and trucks going both ways on the main road, a sidewalk on the far side. Beyond that, the stream which ran along the road, and beyond that, the old Madison Dance Palace. It had been condemned last month. Teasel remembered when he was in high school how he had worked there Friday and Saturday nights parking cars. Hoagie Carmichael had almost played there once, but the owners hadn't been able to promise him enough money. Hoagie Carmichael. Where's the kid? Maybe he isn't coming. Maybe he really left. I saw that look on his face. He's coming all right. Teasel took a deep drag on his cigarette and glanced up at the green-brown mountains lumped close on the horizon. There was a sudden cool wind that smelled of crisp leaves, and then it was gone. Teasel to station, he said into the microphone of his car radio. Has the mail coming yet? As always, Shingleton, the day radio man, was quick to answer, his voice crackling from static. Sure has, Chief. I already checked it for you. Nothing from your wife, I'm afraid. What about from a lawyer? Or maybe something from California, that she didn't put her name on the outside. I already checked that too, Chief. Sorry, nothing. Anything important I ought to know about? Just a set of traffic lights that shorted out. But I got the works department over there fixing it. If that's all, then I'll be a few minutes yet coming back. This kid was a nuisance waiting for him. He wanted to get back to the station and phone her. She was gone 3 weeks now, and she had promised to write at the most by today, and here she had not. He did not care anymore about keeping his own promise to her not to call. He was going to phone anyway. Maybe she had thought it over and changed her mind, but he doubted that. He lit another cigarette and glanced to the side. There were neighbor women out on porches looking to see what he was up to. That was the end, he decided. He flipped the cigarette out the cruiser window, switched the ignition, and drove down to the main road to find out where the hell the kid was. Nowhere in sight. Sure, he's gone. And left on that look was just to make me think he was coming back. So he headed toward the station to phone, and 3 blocks later, when all at once he saw the kid up on the left side walk, leaning against the wire fence over the stream. He slammed on his brakes so hard in surprise that the car following crashed into the rear end of the cruiser. The guy who had hit him was sitting shocked behind the wheel, his hand over his mouth. Teasel opened the cruiser door and stared at the guy a second before he walked over to where the kid was leaning against the wire fence. How did you get into town without me seeing you? Magic. Get in the car. I don't think so. You think a little more. There were cars lined up behind the car that had struck the cruiser. The driver was now standing in the middle of the road, peering at the smashed tail light, shaking his head. Teasel's open door angled into the opposite lane, slowing traffic. Drivers blared their horns. Customers and clerks came sticking their heads out of shops across the street. You listen. I'm going to clear that mess of traffic. The time I'm through, you'll be in that cruiser. They eyed each other. The next thing, Teasel was over to the guy who had hit the cruiser. The guy was still shaking his head at the damage. Driver's license, insurance card, ownership papers. Please. He went and shut the cruiser door. But I didn't have the chance to stop. You were following too close. But you slammed on your brakes too fast. It doesn't matter. The law says the car in the back's always wrong. You were following too close for an emergency. But I'm not about to argue with you. Please give me your driver's license, insurance card, and ownership papers. He looked over at the kid, and of course the kid was gone. The kid set out walking in the open to make it clear that he was not trying to hide. Teasel could give up the game at this point and leave him alone, but if he did not, well, then it was Teasel who wanted the trouble, not himself. He walked along the left-hand sidewalk, looking down at the stream, wide and fast in the sun. Across the stream was the bright yellow, freshly sand-blasted wall of a building, with balconies over the water and a sign high on top, Madison Historical Hotel. The kid tried to figure that was the story about a building that looked as if it had just been put up last year. In the center of town, he turned left onto a big orange bridge, sliding a hand along the smooth, warm paint on the metal rail until he was half across. He stopped to peer down at the water. The afternoon was clear and hot, the water fast and cool looking. Next to him, welded to the rail, was a machine with a glass top full of gumballs. He took a penny from his jeans and reached to put in the slot and held it back in time. He had been wrong. The machine was not full of gumballs, it was full of grainy balls of fish food. There was a small metal plate stamped onto the machine. Feed the fish, it read. 10 cents. Proceeds benefit Basalt County Youth Corps. Busy youth make happy youth. Sure they do, the kid thought, and the early bird gets the shaft. He peered down at the water again. It was not long before he heard somebody walk up behind him. He did not bother to see who it was. Get in the car. The kid concentrated on the water. Will you look at all the fish down there? Must be a couple of thousand. What's the name of that big good old one? Big gold one. It can't be real goldfish. Not that big. Plamino trout, he heard behind him. Get in the car. The kid peered further down at the water. Must be a new strain. I never heard of it. Hey, boy, I'm talking to you. Look at me. But the kid did not. I used to go fishing quite a bit, he said, peering down, when I was young, but now most streams are fished out or polluted. Does the town stock this one? Is that why there are so many fish down there? That was why, all right. The town had stocked the stream for as long as Teasel could remember. Its father often used to bring him down and watch the workmen from the state fish hatchery stock it. The workmen would carry pails from a truck down the slope to the stream, set them in the water, and ease the pails over to let the fish slide out, the length of a man's hand and sleek and sometimes rainbow-colored. Jesus, look at me! The kid felt a hand grab on his sleeve. He tugged it loose. Hands off, he said, peering down at the water. Then he felt at the hand grabbing at him again, and this time he swung around. I'm telling you, he said, hands off. All right, play tough if you want. That doesn't bother me none. He unhooked the handcuffs from his gun belt. Let's have your wrists. The kid kept them at his side. I mean it. Let me be. You mean it? You mean it? You don't seem to understand. I mean it too. Sooner or later, you're getting in that cruiser. Only question is how much force I have to use before you do it. He rested his left hand on the pistol and smiled. It's such a little thing getting in that cruiser, is. What do you say we don't lose our perspective? People walking by looked curiously at them. You would draw that thing? Kid said. At first I thought you were different, but now I see I've met crazy ones like you before. Then you one up on me, because I've never met anything quite like you before. He stopped smiling and closed a big hand round the grip of his gun. Move! And that was it, the kid decided. One of them was going to have to back down, or else Teasel was going to get hurt. Bad. He watched Teasel's hand on the holstered pistol. And he thought, "You bloody stupid cop. Before you pulled that gun, I could snap off both your arms and legs at the joints. I could smash your Adam's apple to sauce and heave you over the rail. Then the fish would really have something to feed on." But not for this, he suddenly told himself. Not for this. Just thinking about what he could do to Tesla, he managed to satisfy his anger and control himself. It was a control he had not been capable of before. And thinking about his control made him feel better too. 6 months ago, when he finished convalescing in the hospital, he had been unable to keep hold of himself. In a bar in Philadelphia, some guy had kept pushing ahead of him to see the go-go girl take off her pants, and he had broken the guy's nose for him. A month later in Pittsburgh, he had slit the throat of a big black man who pulled a knife on him when he was sleeping one night by a lake in a park. The black man had brought a friend who tried to run, and the kid had hunted him all through the park until he finally caught him trying to start his convertible. No, not for this one, he told himself. You're all right now. It was his turn to smile. Okay, let's have another ride. But I don't know what the point is. I'm only going to walk back into town again. The police station was in an old schoolhouse, and yet the kid thought as Teasel drove into the parking lot at the side. He almost asked the policeman if painting the schoolhouse red was somebody's idea of a joke, but he knew that none of this was a joke, and he wondered if he should try talking himself out of it at all. You don't even like this place. It doesn't even interest you. If Diesel hadn't picked you up, you would have gone straight through on your own. That doesn't make a difference. The cement steps leading up to the front door of the station looked new to him. The shiny aluminum door was certainly new, and inside there was a bright white room that took up the width of the building and half the length and smelled of turpentine. The room was checkered with desks, only two of which had anybody at them, a policeman typing and another policeman talking into the two-way radio. There was along the right back wall. They both stopped when they saw him, and he waited for it to come. "No, that's a sorry sight," the man by the typewriter said. It never failed to come. "Sure," the kid told him. "And now you're supposed to say am I, a girl or a boy? And after that, you're supposed to say if I'm too poor to get a bath and a haircut, you'll take up a collection for me." "It's not his looks I mind," Teasel said. "It's his mouth. Shingleton, have you anything new I ought to know about?" asked the man by the radio. The man sat tall and solid. He had an almost perfectly rectangle face, neat sideburns down to slightly below his ears. "Stolen car," he said. "Who's handling it?" "Ward." "That'll be fine." "Come on now, let's get this over," he said to the kid. They went across the room and down a corridor to the rear of the building. Footsteps and voices were coming out, open doors on both sides, office workers in most of the rooms, policemen in the rest. The corridor was glossy white, and the turpentine smelled worse. And down at the end there was a scaffold under a dirty green part of the ceiling that had been left unpainted. The kid read the sign that was taped to the scaffold. "Out of white paint, but we got more coming in tomorrow, and we got the blue paint. You want to cover the red outside?" And Teasel opened the door into an office at the very end of the hall, and the kid held back a moment. "Are you absolutely sure you want to go through with this?" he asked himself. "It's still not too late to try and talk your way out." "Out of what? I haven't done anything wrong." "Well, come on now. Get in there. This is what you've been working for." It had been a mistake not to go in there right away. Holding back at the door looked like he was afraid, and he did not want that. But now if he went inside after Cecil had ordered him, it would look like he was obeying. And he didn't want that either. He went in before Teasel had another chance to order him. The office ceiling came down close to his head, and he felt so close in that he wanted to stoop. But he did not allow himself. The floor had a rug that was green and worn like grass that had been trimmed too close to earth. On the left behind the desk there was a case of handguns. He centered on a 44 Magnum and remembered it from Special Forces training camp. The most powerful handgun ever made, able to shoot through 5 inches of steel to bring down a head. an elephant, but with a kick so great that he himself had always disliked using it. Repercussions, he thought. Repercussions. Sit down on the bench, boy, and wake up. Let's have your name. Just call me boy, he said. The bench was along the right wall. He leaned his sleeping bag against it and sat down extremely straight and rigid. It's none of it funny anymore, kid. Let's have your name. I'm known as Kid too. You can call me that if you want to. You're right, I will. I'm at the point where I'm ready to call you any damn thing I feel like. The kid was more damn nuisance than he could tolerate. All he wanted was to have him out of the office so he could phone. It was 4:30 now. And figuring his time, the time shift, it was what, 3:30, 2:30, 1:30 in California. Maybe she would not be in at her sister's now. Maybe she was out having lunch with somebody. Of course. What else? Who, he wondered. Where? That was why he was spending so much time with the kid. Do you really think a woman is alone by herself doing nothing? You fool. You did not let your troubles interfere with your job. You kept your life at home where it belonged. She's cheating on every level. If your problems made you start to rush through something, then you forced yourself to slow and do it extra well. In this case, maybe the rule was paying off. The kid did not want to give his name, and the only reason people did not give a name was they had something to hide. Well, he would take it slow and find out. Would you like a smoke? I don't smoke. Diesel nodded and leisurely drew on a cigarette. Leisurely drew on a cigarette. How about we try this again? What's your name? None of your business. Dear God, Diesel thought. In spite of himself, he pushed away from the desk and took a few steps toward the kid, slowly though, he told himself. Make it calm. You didn't say that. I can't believe I actually heard that. You heard me all right. My name is my business. You haven't given me a reason to make it yours. I'm the chief of police you're talking to. That's not good enough reason. It's the best damn reason in the world. Let me have your wallet. I don't carry one. Let me have your ID cards. I don't carry them either. No driver's license, no social security, no draft card, nothing at all. That's right. Don't pull that with me. Get out your ID card. Now the kid was not even bothered to look at him. He was turned toward the gun case, pointing at the medal above the line of shooting trophies. The Distinguished Service Cross really gave them hell in Korea, did you? Okay, on your feet. It was the second highest medal he could get. Ranking above the Bronze Star, Silver Star, Purple Heart, Distinguished Flying Medal, and Distinguished Service Medal. Only the Congressional Medal of Honor ranked above it. To Marine Corps Master Sergeant Wilfred Logan Teasel for conspicuous and valiant leadership in the face of overwhelming enemy fire. Mhm. That was December 6, 1950. That was when he was 20. And he was not about to let any kid who didn't look much older mock it. Get on your feet. I'm sick of telling you everything twice. Get on your feet and pull out your pockets. The kid shrugged and took his time standing. He went from one pocket of his jeans to the other, pulling them out, and there was nothing in it. You didn't pull out the pockets in your jacket, Teaser said. By God, you're right. When he pulled them, he came out with $2.23 plus a book of matches. Why the matches? Teaser said. You told me you don't smoke. I need to start fires to cook on. But you don't have any job or money. Where do you get the food to cook? What do you expect me to say? That I steal it? Teaser looked at the kid's sleeping bag against the side of the bench, guessing where the ID cards were. He untied it and threw it out, unrolled on the floor. There was a clean shirt and a toothbrush. When he started feeling through the shirt, the kid said, Hey, I spent a lot of time ironing that shirt. Be careful not to wrinkle it. And Teaser was suddenly very tired of him. He pressed the intercom on his desk. Shingleton, you had a look at this kid when he came through. I want you to radio his description to the state police. Say I'd like him identified quick as they can. While you're at it, check if the matches and description we have in the files. He has no job, no money, but he sure looks well fed. I want to know why. So you're determined to push this thing? The kid said. That's wrong. I'm not the one who's pushing. The justice of the peace had an air conditioner. It hummed a bit and rattled every so often and made the office so cold that the kid had to shiver. The man behind the desk was bundled in an oversized blue sweater. His name was Dobson. The sign on the door said. He was chewing tobacco, and as soon as he took a look at the kid coming in, he stopped chewing. Well, I'll be, he said and rolled his shoulders. When you phoned Will, you should have told me that the circus was in town. Always it came some remark. Always. This whole business was getting out of hand, and knew that he had better give in soon. That they could make a lot of trouble for him if he did not. But there the crap was coming his way again. They would not let up, and Jesus, he was just not going to take it. Listen, son, I really have to ask you a question. His face was very round. When he spoke, he slipped his chewing tobacco against one cheek. I see kids on the TV demonstrating and writing and all. And I'm no demonstrator. What I have to know, doesn't that hair get itchy down the back of your neck? Always they asked me the same. It did at first. Dobson scratched his eyebrow and thought about that answer. Yeah, I suppose. You can get used to just about anything if you put your mind to it. But what about the beard? Does it get itchy in the heat? Sometimes. Then what possessed you to let it grow? I have a rash on my face I'm not supposed to shave. Like I have a pain in my rear end, and I'm not supposed to wipe it? Isabel, now wait a second, Will. It may be he's telling the truth. The kid could not resist. I'm not. Then what did you say all that for? I get tired of people asking me why I grew the beard. Why did you grow the beard? I have a rash on my face I'm not supposed to shave. Dobson looked like he had been slapped in the face. The air conditioner whined and rattled. Well, well. I guess I walked into that one, didn't I, Will? The laugh's on me. I walked right into it, I surely did. My yes. Just what's the charge, Will? There's two of them, vagrancy and resisting arrest. But those are just... There's two of them, vagrancy and resisting arrest. But those are just to hold him while I find out if he's wanted anywhere. My guess is theft someplace. We'll take up the vagrancy first. You're guilty, son? The kid said he wasn't. Do you have a job? Do you have more than $10? He didn't say anything. Then there's no way around it, son. You're vagrant. That'll cost you 5 days in jail or $50 fine. Which will it be? I just told you I don't have 10, so where the hell would I get 50? This is a court of law, Dobson said. I will not tolerate abusing language in my court. One more outburst and I charge you with contempt. He was a moment before he settled back in his chair and started to chew again, thinking, even as it is, I don't see how I can keep your attitude out of mind when I'm sentencing you. Like this matter of resistance arrest, not guilty. I haven't asked you yet. Wait until I ask you, what's the story on this resisting arrest, Will? I picked him up for hitchhiking. I did him a favor and gave him a lift to outside town. Figured it would be best for everyone if he kept right on moving. But he came back. I had a right. So I drove him out of town again, and he came back again. When I told him to get in the cruise, he refused. And finally had to threaten force before he'd listen. You think I got in the car because I was afraid of you? He won't tell me his name. Why should I? Claims he has no ID cards. Why the hell do I need any? Listen, I can't sit here all night while you two have it out with each other, Dobson said. My wife is sick and I was supposed to be home to cook dinner for the kids at 5. I'm late already. 30 days in jail or $200 fine. What'll be, son? 200? Christ, I just told you I don't have more than 10. Then it's 35 days in jail. I was about to cancel the 5 days for vagrancy, but your attitude is intolerable. I have to go. I'm late. The air conditioner began to rattle more than it was humming, and the kid could not tell if he was shivering from cold or rage. Hey, I'm still waiting for you to ask me if I'm guilty of resisting arrest. The doors on both sides of the corridor were closed now. He passed the painter's scaffold near the end of the hall, heading for Teasel's office. No, this time you go this way. He pointed to the last door on the right, a door with bars and a little window at the top. He reached with the key to unlock it before he saw that the door was already open a quarter inch. Shaking his head disgustingly at that, he pushed the door the rest of the way open and motioned the kid through a stairwell with an iron banister and cement steps going down on fluorescent lights in the ceiling. As soon as the kid was in, Teasel came through behind him, locking the door, and they walked down, their footsteps scraping the cement stairs, echoing. The kid heard the spray before they reached the basement. The cement floor was wet and reflected fluorescent light, and down at the far end, a thin policeman was hosing the floor of a cell, water running out between the bars and down a drain. When he saw Teasel and the kid, he screwed the nozzle tight. The water flared out in a wide arc and abruptly stopped. Galt, why is that upstairs door unlocked again? Did I... We don't have any more prisoners. The last one just woke up and I let him go. It doesn't matter if you have prisoners or not. If you get in the habit of leaving it open when we're empty, then you might start forgetting to lock it when there's somebody in there. So I want the door locked regardless. I don't like to say this. It may be tough getting used to a new job and a new routine, but if you don't learn to be careful, you might have to look for somebody else. The kid was as cold as he had been in Dobson's office, shivering. The lights and the ceiling were too close to his head. Even so, the place seemed dark, iron and cement. Christ, he should never have let Teasel bring him down. Walking across from the courtside, he should have broken Teasel and escaped. Anything, even being on the run, was better than 35 days down there. What the hell did you expect? He told himself. You asked for this, didn't you? You wouldn't back off. Damn right I wouldn't. And I still won't. Just because I'll be locked up don't mean I'm finished. I'll fight this as far as it goes. By the time he's ready to let me out, he'll be fucking glad to be rid of me. Sure you'll fight, sure. What a laugh. Take a look at yourself. Already you're shaking. Already you know what this place reminds you of. 2 days in that cramped cell and you'll be pissing down your pant legs. You've got to understand. I can't stay in there. The wet, I can't stand being close in where it's wet. The hole, he was thinking, his scalp alive. The bamboo grate over the top, water seeping through the dirt, the walls crumbling, the inches of slimy muck he had to try sleeping on. Tell him for God's sake. Screw, you mean beg him? Sure. Now when it was too late, now the kid was coming around and trying to talk himself out of this. Teasel could not get over the needlessness of it all. How the kid had actually tried his damnedest to work himself down here. Just be thankful it is wet, he told the kid. That we hose everything down. We get weekend drunks in here, and come Mondays when we kick them out. They've been sick up the walls and all over the place. He glanced at the cells and the water on the floor and made them look clean, sparkling. You may be careless with that door upstairs, Galt, he told him, but you sure did a job on those cells. Do me a favor, will you? Go up and get some bedding and outfit for this kid. You, he told the kid, I guess the middle cell is fine. Go in. Take off your boots, your pants, your jacket. Leave on your socks, your underwear, your sweatshirt. Take off any jewelry, any chain around your neck, any watch. Gold, what are you looking at? Nothing. What about the gear I sent you for? I was just looking. I'll get it. Aren't you going to tell him again to lock the door? The kid said. No need. He listened to the rattle of the door being unlocked. He waited, then heard Galt lock the door after him. Start with the boots, he told the kid. So what else did he expect? The kid took off his jacket. There you go again. I told you start with the boots. The floor's wet. And I told you to get in there. I'm not going to get in any sooner than I have to. He folded his jacket, squinted at the water on the floor, and set the jacket on the stairs. He put his boots beside it, took off his jeans, folded them, and put them on top of the jacket. What's that big scar above your left knee? Teasel said. What happened? The kid did not answer. It looks like a bullet scar. Where did you get it? My socks are wet on this floor. Take them off. Diesel had to step back to keep from being hit by them. Now take off your sweatshirt, he said. What for? Don't tell me you're still looking for my ID cards. Let's just say I look a thorough search. Then I want to see if you're anything hidden under your arms. Like what? Dope? Grass? Who knows? It's happened. Well, not me. I gave up the stuff a long time ago. Hell, it's against the law. Very funny. Just take off your sweatshirt. For once, the kid did what he was told, as low as he could, of course. His stomach muscles showed tight, and there were 3 straight scars across his chest. Where did they come from? Knife scars? What the hell have you been up to anyway? The kid squinted at the light and did not answer. He had a large triangular patch of black hair on his chest. 2 of the scars cut through it. Hold up your arms and turn around. That isn't necessary. If there was a quicker way to search you, I would sure have found it. Turn around. There were dozens of small jagged scars across the kid's back. Jesus, what's going on here? Those are lash marks. Who's been lashing you? Kid still did not answer. There's going to be some interest to report the state police sends back on you. Yes, it is. Now came the part he hated. All right, pull down your shorts. The kid looked at him, and he looked at him. Don't give me any bashful looks. Everybody has to go through this. And everybody is still a virgin when I'm finished. Just pull the shorts down, that's enough. Stop right there at your knees. I don't want to see any more of you. Then I have to. Hold yourself up down there. I want to see if there's anything hidden. Not 2 hands, 1. Just your fingertips. Keeping a distance. Teasel stooped and peered at the kid's groin from several angles. The testes were bunched up close under. Now came the worst part of all. He would have told somebody like Gal to do it, but it had no light pattern. Turn around and bend over. The kid really looked at him. Get your jollies off somebody else. I won't put up with any more of this. Yes, you will. Aside from what you might have hit up it, I'm not interested in your rear end whatsoever. Just do what you're told. Now reach back and spread your cheeks. Come on. It's not a sight I enjoy. There. You know, when I worked in Louisville, I once had a prisoner with a 3-inch knife in a leather case shoved up himself. It always beat me how he could sit down. After Gerd was unlocking the door and opening it. Okay, you're clean, Diesel said to the kid. You can pull up your shorts.